and welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join our webinar, Streamlining Audits and Scaling Compliance, How Constellium and High Purity New England Save the Bottom Line. So we are so glad you're here, but before we start, just a quick couple housekeeping items. Please feel free to submit any questions that you have through the chat Q&A. We will have plenty of time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. After the webinar concludes, you will receive an email with a link to a recording of the webinar. So I'd like to start first with a couple of quick introductions. Joining us today is Robert Jones, Quality Systems Manager at Constellium, and Shannon Flanagan, Director of Quality and Regulatory Compliance at High Purity New England. And I'm Jennifer Gianchini. I'm on the product marketing team at ETQ. So here's a quick look at our agenda, and we're going to go ahead and dive in now. Next slide, please. So I'd like to start things off with just a quick poll question. So what do you think is the average cost to an organization to rectify a single audit finding? Is it $2,500? A, is it B, $5,000? Or C, $15,000? Or D, $20,000? Or maybe you just don't know. So go ahead and click on E, not sure. And we'll give you just a quick minute here. So if you answered $5,000, you are correct. So according to a study that ETQ did with our customers, we found that our customers experience on average, the cost to remediate a single finding is $5,000. So now let's jump to some of the challenges you may face when you are preparing for an audit and working towards demonstrating compliance. So here you see some of the challenges we have heard from our customers that can arise during the audit process, issues they may have experienced over time. The first being is that they have multiple systems that have duplicate pieces of information, or the information might be inconsistent. How do you know what information is correct? And also, how do you take that information that is in a file system, like say a SharePoint folder, and then move it to a centralized system so it's accessible to the people who need it? And then there is the time that it takes to prepare for an audit. You know an audit is coming up. How do you find all of the information that you need? How do you even know where all that information is stored? What is an auditor going to ask you for? There's lots of anticipation that you need to prepare for. And then let's take a look at the suppliers. How do you have visibility into your suppliers? So how can you get the information from them to address any audit questions that might come up? And finally, some folks might want to do things one way, and yet another team does it another way. How do you assure consistency if processes are not aligned between teams or locations, much less an entire organization? So I'm sure there's a lot of different challenges that could come up during a quality audit, but these are just a few examples. And I'm sure everyone here on the webinar can talk to some challenges they've experienced on their own, but it doesn't need to be that way. Next slide, please. A quality management system provides a place for audits to happen, and you can be audit ready. So as I mentioned, we did a research project with our customers, and we looked at the value that a quality management system brings to our customers. And part of that was specifically looking at the value that they saw when it came to audit management. And what we heard from our customers was that they really saw value when it came to reducing the risk of noncompliance, and where they saved time on planning and executing the audits. Also, when it came to supporting external audits, our customers really reported a value and time saver on that because of the audits they also need to do with their suppliers. Also, when it came to getting audited by external organizations, such as a regulatory agency like, say, the FDA or OSHA, they found it very helpful in getting prepared. And in addition, it helped to reduce the number of CAPAs, which is really important. So when looking at quantifying, what does this mean? As part of our research project, we saw with our customers that the time spent planning and reporting on audits dropped 20%. When it came to supporting those external audits, they saw a 50% reduction. And for the number of audit findings, our customers saw that number go down 50%. So this is pretty significant. And this all leads to improved productivity. Your teams aren't simply there to support an audit, but they're now able to focus on more strategic activities. So now I'm going to turn this over to Robert, and he's going to share with you how they achieved visibility with audits.
Hello, how's everybody doing today? And it's Robert Jones. I'll be talking a little bit about our journey with ETQ and implementing it here at our site. Just to let everybody know, this is a uniform that all of our salary wear at Constellium worldwide. It's made out of fire-resistant material. We work in an aluminum mill, so I am not wanted by the warden to be back at 5 p.m. We're not on a prison release program or anything like that. Next slide, please. So I just talked a little bit about Constellium. Constellium is a very kind of a new company in the world. We're about 11, 12 years, but we are built on the backbone of many aluminum companies over time. And so what you see is, all the way back to 1855, Pechenay, and we got Reynolds, Alu Suisse, Alcan, it's really well-known companies all around the world that had developed aluminum and made aluminum for different manufacturing needs all the way back to 1855. 2000, we were owned by Alcan and Pechenay, and then Rio Tinto Alcan, and then Constellium purchased our location and has also purchased quite a bit of other aluminum manufacturing locations worldwide. And did become the company that we are now, which is Constellium, which is really nice because we like to say, hey, we're 11, 12 years old, but we have, hundreds of years of experience in the aluminum industry. That makes sense. Next slide, please. So just Constellium at a glance, we have 28 production facilities all over the world. We have 3 R&D centers. We have a little bit over 12,000 employees, and we have a revenue of $6.2 billion a year. Our main markets are automotive, aerospace, and packaging materials. So it's everything from a tin can all the way to aircraft and different motor vehicles that are out there. Next slide. So the area that Constellium really has grown in and developed is in casting, rolling, and extrusion. Number 2, product design and manufacturing, and also recycling of aluminum to make it a more sustainable process. So if you think about the entire supply chain for aluminum, we are not in extracting, refining, or smelting. We're not in the end product development that you're going to see Ford, GM, Boeing, all those good things. And we're not collecting and sorting materials. We're just focused on casting, rolling, extrusion, product design and manufacturing, and recycling. Next slide. So just to give you an idea, here at Ravenswood, our main business is aerospace and transportation. So I'm a quality systems manager for one of our sites here at Constellium Ravenswood. And so we're part of a larger global supplier for aluminum. and we focus on plates, sheets, extrusions, castings, and forging stock. We are an aluminum mill here in Ravenswood, and we partner and work with quite a bit of our sister companies to deliver product and as part of the supply chain for our businesses. Next slide. So, we are very aerospace driven, AS 9100, ISO 9001, IATF 16949. We are one of the only aluminum facilities in the world that really focused on the space area. And so, in doing so, we are the main supplier for NASA, SpaceX, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and we create an airwear product that is really, really good for aerospace and space applications. And we are one of the main suppliers for a lot of the companies out here. We've made all the rockets for SpaceX. And it's nice to see every time that in the news when we're talking about those rockets going up and coming back down, that we've developed all the basically the aluminum that was used in those rockets throughout the processes. Okay, so talk a little bit about my job in Ravenswood. So our quality system requirements are what I think is maybe over the level. So we're ISO 9001, AS 9100, IATF 16949. We have 3 NADCAP certifications here for heat treatment, material testing, and non-destructive testing. We're also ISO 17025. We just this last year went after Aluminum Sustainability Initiative, which is part of a sustainability push. It's more in the EHS, OHS, labor, environmental aspects. ISO 45001 and then ISO 14001. So at just looking at my certifications, I'm going to have at least 10 third-party audits that we're going to be conducting throughout the year. And putting all their standard requirements together is probably a little bit over 4,000 standard requirements and all those different certifications. And then on top of that, we are a major customer or supplier for Boeing, Airbus, Ford, GM, SpaceX, Blue Origin. And we have anywhere between 5 to 7 customer audits a year, together with at least another 2,000 to 3,000 customer specific requirements that have to be met through our quality management system. So it's sometimes it's a little daunting when I think about it and kind of go through it, but we usually deal with about 15 to 20 audits a year, which I don't know if there's a lot of other quality systems managers that deal with that amount of audits. So kind of looking at this, one of the ways that I always look at quality systems is a transactional management system. Is all of these different processes require a record of evidence and moving that record through its processes. So one way to think about us is we have around 70 to 100 corrective actions that we're monitoring throughout a year. We have 1,200 some odd non-performances that we're dealing with and walking through the process that all have to be managed, make sure that we don't escape the product. We have 60 plus internal audits that are conducted each year. We have 40 to 60 MLCs. We have over 4,000 document controls, document procedures that have to be controlled throughout the processes. I have 376 salary employees. I have 1,200 hourly employees here at this location. All need to have their training records and their effectiveness of training. Everybody's in aerospace. And then we have 76 FMEAs, third modes and effects analysis, process FMEAs. And we have 76 process control plans. We have a little bit over 5 PPAPs or APQPs going on at any given time. We also need to have cost of quality accounted for and ready to go for the end of the year and also for our monthly meetings. And we have seen a reduction in headcount in my department of almost 6 individuals. So these are all things that we kind of deal with here in Ravenswood over the last couple of years as we're implementing the ETQ process. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of an overview of the overall journey that we've had here in Constellium. So we purchased ETQ back in around 2018, 2019, and really started implementing the process during COVID in 2020. And so one of the ways that we really went after this was document control. I like to think of this plant, we're a very big aluminum mill. It's almost like 6 or 7 plants in one. And each one of our, what we call an autonomous business unit or ABU or APU, has around 300 or 400 people in it, and their own documents that they control throughout the process. So when I look at pulling it all together for the plant, we literally have about 4,000 some odd documents that we're controlling in the system. I have 70 technical managers that own these documents in various stages. And just, on an annual basis, we deal with about 400 plus change requests to these documents, everything from MET practices to material setups to SOPs that are used on the floor, to procedures, high-level procedures and guidelines, work instructions, all the way down to documenting different software that we use around the facility and what versions they're at. And we have annual reviews of all of our documents based on what type they are. And then the nice thing about ETQ is we were able to develop document types and workflows. And then we also allow for access on the floor level for all operators. 1,200 some odd operators can go to any computer in the plant and open up ETQ and be able to get direct access to all the documents that we have in there for them. So just to make a long story short, 2020, we also focused on record retention, assets and calibrations. We consolidated a lot of our software and implemented our calibration control throughout the processes. 2021, we focused on corrective action and product specifications management. In 2022, we implemented management of change, new product realization. And 2023, we implemented emergency preparedness plans and testing around those plans. In 2024, we implemented process FMEAs and control plans, and just recently compliance and obligations. So, I have a very limited small team that works for me, and we're focusing on trying to do at least 1 or 2 modules in ETQ each year. And what we have seen through this implementation is that we've been able to reduce headcount in different areas around the plant, and overall salary as we've gone to an ETQ automated system has dropped by almost $1 million annually. So, and that is through our implementation of automation and workflows using the ETQ system. The other thing that's nice is that I have complete visibility to all of my records. Getting ready for audits takes a lot less effort. And I can check on all of my quality management system areas that are in ETQ almost immediately and get real-time information on our records, whether or not we're in compliance, whether or not we're ready for an audit, which is really nice when you're dealing with as many audits as I have in my facility. I can get a call from sales and I have a big customer who wants to come in next week. And the nice thing about that is I can know that we're ready to go with their customer specific requirements. We're ready to go with our records. And if they want to come in and audit us and look at anything, we can show compliance. And that's really, really nice for our facility. Years past, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, this would have been a very difficult task for me to do. I would have not had visibility to all these different records and processes. Everything went through my department. It was not visible to the different areas. I could not train a technical manager as an admin and let them control their own documents. Back in the day, everything had to go through my team so that we could do all of that for them rather than letting them be the owners of this process. So ETQ has been a dramatic change, I think, for us here in Constellium and allowed for us to grow. And I don't really like to talk about reducing headcount. Overall, I think that a quality professional is worth their weight in gold, especially when they're set up properly and have the right support. But I do like to say that those people can work on other things, more important things than doing what I call non-value add applications, manually doing a change request and emailing it out to people so that we can get approvals. Instead of that, they can work on the process and work on more important things. So we have seen this here at the plant, and it's been a really, really nice improvement for us overall. We've gone from where we probably had, unfortunately, about 5 to 7 minor non-conformances per audit to where we're at 1 or 2, for the most part. And I have many, many customer audits where they come in and they have given us really nice scores or have not given us any non-conformances through the process. So ETQ has been very nice on that side. My hours really like it, and implementation of it around the plant it's been challenging and fun, but it's also really well accepted by most people once they get used to it. Next slide, please. So just a quick summary of myself. So I am an ASQ senior member. I've been a senior member since 2007. I'm a certified quality engineer through ASQ. I have a little bit over 20 years experience in quality management, 16 plus years where at Worthington Industries, where I worked in various quality roles, including implementation of our quality system. And 5 years or plus, I'm almost at 6 years here in Constellium. And I'm a lead auditor, certification for ISO 9001, AS 9100, IATF 16949, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Technical Management. I lead and manage Ravenswood's certification program for Constellium, which we have 5 APUs, autonomous production units. It's kind of like 6 plants all in one. I've right now currently 1 direct report. I'm hiring for a quality engineer and a few external reports, and then we have 900 U.S. Steel Union employees here at the plant, and 300 plus salary that I work with on a regular basis. So thank you for your time today, and I appreciate being able to share our journey here in Constellium, where ETQ has been something that if I did not have, I think I would be in a pretty bad shape here today, trying to run around as one person, trying to manage all these different certificates and get ready for audits.
Thank you, Robert. That was really insightful, literally, with all of that gained visibility. So now I'd like to turn it over to Shannon, and I'm looking forward to hear how High Purity New England manages changes and scales compliance. Shannon, can you take it away, please?
Absolutely, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Flanagan. I'm the Director of Quality and Regulatory Compliance at High Purity New England. So High Purity New England was founded in 2002 and has grown over the last 22 years to about 150, 160 employees. We focus in the biopharmaceutical space. We provide equipment, namely single-use equipment, to our customers who manufacture drugs. So we're based in Smithfield, Rhode Island. We have 2 facilities here for manufacturing. Both of them contain ISO 7 clean rooms, and we are ISO 9001 certified. The interesting thing about us from a regulatory perspective is we're in this fun gray area for regulatory, in the sense that we aren't registered with the FDA. We have no requirement to do so. We're not inspected by the FDA. However, every one of our customers is. And many of their requirements that they have to meet flow down to us through the quality agreements that we have in place with them. So while we aren't regulated, we're working with customers who are highly regulated and therefore have to meet those standards in many ways. So as I mentioned, we offer custom single-use assemblies. We also function as a distributor for single-use downstream and also for upstream bioprocessing equipment. So this gives you a bit of an overview of our Reliance Roadmap over the last several years. For a little bit of context, coming into this, during the pandemic, we experienced an impressive amount of growth. Many companies in the same space as us also experienced that, as you can imagine. And we were running almost entirely on paper-based systems or Excel spreadsheets, which was not scalable at the pace that the business was moving. So in 2022, we embarked on a digitalization project. One aspect of that was ETQ Reliance, along with our ERP system that we also started the implementation process with at the same time. So during that time, we had to sit down and prioritize what was most important to the business as we scaled. And we started with launching document control in Q3 of 2022. And we did that out of the box, what ETQ likes to call the easy version, very little configuration, straightforward, just to get us moving. And so right now we've got about 2,800 control documents working adjacent to highly regulated space. You can imagine that everything that we do has to be effectively documented. And then from there in Q4 of 2022, we launched nonconformance and CAPA. And so right about now, we run about 500 nonconformances annually, significantly fewer CAPAs through those processes. And then in Q2 of 2023, we launched the risk register, which was our first foray really into risk management and risk documentation. And that risk register has tentacles throughout the system. We use that in our CAPA processes, and we use it in a number of other applications that I'll talk about momentarily. And then from there, we moved into Q3 of 2023, where we launched a number of different applications, including deviations, change control, suppliers and materials, and training management. Now, for us in our space, change control is really the heart of our regulatory requirements. Changes cannot be made on the fly. Everything has to be documented, risk justified. We have customers signing off on those changes. It's an incredibly intense process for us. And annually, we run about 500 to 600 change controls through that process. And similarly, on the suppliers and materials side, approval processes for suppliers, monitoring and management, material qualification systems. All of our materials also highly regulated from a compliance standpoint beyond your standard REACH and RoHS. We've got so many biochemistry requirements and just a lot of testing and regulatory requirements around materials. So right now, from a compliance standpoint, we manage the compliance of over 13,000 parts and finished goods through that system, and we manage over 300 approved suppliers. So all of those systems are really the core of how we maintain compliance, predominantly to customer requirements that flow down as a part of their regulatory compliance systems. And then, of course, I mentioned training management. So with about 150 to 160 employees, all of them have access to the system. All of them complete their training within that system. And we operate 3 different levels of training as well. So beyond just your read and understood, we have your competency-based training for quizzes. And then we also have what we call technical training, which requires skill demonstration as well. And all of that runs through our training management system. And that alone represented an enormous increase in bandwidth through our training management team just by implementing that system electronically rather than paper-based. And then at the start of 2024, we implemented our ERP system. And we implemented an integration from ETQ Reliance into that ERP system through the non-conformance process. So the way the systems function now, all of our inspection activity is recorded within the ERP, and then that is immediately, any failed inspections immediately are communicated through the system into ETQ Reliance, where an NC is launched and the process runs through MRB within ETQ. And then once the disposition and the implementation activities are complete, that information then feeds back to the ERP system for the relevant inventory and financial transactions. And all of that happens behind the scenes. So that keeps our 2 systems well aligned and ensures that inventory is maintained accurately. We have the correct physical and transactional blocks within both systems for any non-conforming materials. And it really has enhanced our ability to maintain proper control of non-conforming materials. So this year, we're embarking on several new additional rollouts within ETQ. The first is the quality events module, which really is the start of any investigation for us. So from quality events, we can then branch out, do an initial investigation, determine if we need to do a full-blown lab investigation, if we need non-conformances, CAPAs, SCARs, RMAs, and any other relevant actions coming straight from that quality event. And previously, this was just kind of scattered across multiple different processes, whereas now it's very centralized at the launch point. And what I'm probably most proud of during this entire launch process for us with ETQ Reliance is what we're calling our electronic batch records. So we're in the process of launching that, scheduled for the middle of August. And this is a fully customized application built from the ground up to our specifications. Whereas everything else has been out of the box with minor configuration. This is fully specified to our needs. So this controls all of our documentation within our production processes, from start to finish, from kitting all the way through final release, sterilization, final shipment, even our certificates of conformance. So this has been a huge undertaking, and we're very excited to be able to launch that next month. And then our future plans include project control and the audit management modules. And what all of these have done for us has enabled us, as Robert had mentioned, some benefits during audit processes. We've been able to move smoothly through all of our audits. We can get anywhere from 10 to 15 audits annually, predominantly from our customers. So we're able to link all of the relevant records, move smoothly through the audit processes. We even ran into a customer who also uses ETQ Reliance. So we were pleased to be able to speak the same language, so to speak, as we were going through the audit process with them. So it really has improved the way we manage audits. But additionally, next slide, please. The system as a whole has had some pretty broad impacts for us. The first is really around data accessibility. So before I mentioned we had a lot of paper-based records, and we had a lot of Excel spreadsheets on shared network drives. People had different permissions. We were constantly maintaining those systems. Now it's all in a single point of truth, all within the same system, all fully accessible to all of our employees. And then from there, we now have stronger capabilities for data analytics. So with centralized reporting tools, we're able to drive those database decisions that we could only dream of before. And we can certainly do that with less overhead. Instead of a few people scrambling every quarter, every year for management review to pull metrics together and digging into spreadsheets and spending days or weeks pulling that information together, we can now do it with the click of a button. So management review now becomes very streamlined and easy for us. Then we talk about reduced cycle times. For us, this is incredibly critical. For change control in particular, and also deviations, our production processes hinge on being able to turn these processes very quickly. And we've been able to bring our cycle time for change control down by nearly 60%. Deviations also come down fairly significantly, excluding the customer sign-off required for either of those, which is obviously a process step we don't have control over. But we've seen increased bandwidth within our team, who are now able to function less on administrative tasks and function more on value-added tasks within our quality systems. We're also able to reduce risk in our clean rooms because we're now running entirely electronically. Previously, we were bringing in paper, pens. All of those are contamination risks within a clean room, particularly if they're moving in and out, even with the controls in place. Now we have dedicated computer systems. We're able to really reduce the risk coming from pen, paper, and contamination. One of the big things that has also impacted increased bandwidth across our team has been the system managing the bulk of our GDOC-P requirements. So if you function in any CGMP regulated space, GDOC-P is always a stress point. No matter how much you train people, they're not always going to consistently fill out the documentation correctly. So by using the electronic systems within Reliance, we can have auto formatting of fields so that they're being filled in the correct format. We've got required fields where you can't go past a specific point without having filled those in. We have electronic signatures, we have audit trails, and all of this greatly reduces the overhead burden of managing GDOC-P and dealing with GDOC-P errors. So instead of having batch record reviews at specific points in time and having to hold up production while batch records get amended or corrected, we're now doing that in real time. We're eliminating those errors altogether or catching them at the point the errors are being created. So the bandwidth that this has freed up with our team is exceptional. And we're now able to put that valuable asset to use in better ways. And lastly, you'll notice that our logo shows that we're a getting a company. We were recently acquired by a large multinational Swedish company with a strong sustainability program. And one of those requirements or goals for the organization is net zero by 2050. And one of those small pieces to that is, from our perspective, is reducing the reliance on paper to improve our sustainability standpoint. So the carbon footprint of paper alone is pretty shocking if you've ever looked into that. And just the ability to avoid even just having to have a recycle program for a large percentage of the paper we were using, we no longer even need to worry about that. Now we've got electronic systems in place that don't require that input. So at this point, we're 2.5 years into our journey with Reliance. We've got a clear path through the next year, and then I imagine as we continue to scale and grow, we'll continue to add on new applications. and really utilize the system to provide these and additional benefits. And we've had a really great experience working with the ETQ team for each of these rollouts. We've kind of grouped them into 3 major phases, and each time we've been really successful in partnering with the implementation teams from ETQ and had very smooth rollouts. And the system as a whole has functioned exceptionally well for us. So we're quite excited to continue on the journey, and I've really enjoyed sharing that with you.
All right, thanks, Shannon. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with ETQ Reliance to manage change. And congratulations on your electronic batch records launch. So everyone joining us today, I think you all got some really great nuggets of information from Shannon and Robert. Next slide, please. So no matter where you are in your journey, ETQ is ready to help you. From calculating the ROI for your business case, to mapping out your deployment strategy, to providing the level of onboarding support you need. With a comprehensive, purpose-built QMS like ETQ, you can reduce costs, streamline operations, build compliance into your processes, and mitigate supplier quality risk, resulting in improved efficiency, time to market, sustainability, and bottom line results. We'd love to have the opportunity to share our expertise and help you along your quality journey. Next slide, please. As you can see with ETQ, you are in good company. We serve hundreds of customers of all shapes and sizes across many industries. We apply learnings and best practices from across all of these industries to provide a unique value to all of our customers. Next slide, please. For over 30 years, ETQ has empowered quality champions to use quality management as a catalyst for business success. We offer a flexible, scalable, easy-to-use EQMS solution that's purpose-built to connect quality processes to all areas of your organization. And we also aim to be your trusted advisor, helping to guide you through your quality journey. And we are also a part of Hexagon, a global leader in sensor, software, and autonomous manufacturing solutions. Next slide, please. So we've now reached the part of our webinar where we have some time for some Q&A. So taking a look at the chat here, let's see. A question that came in is, can you provide an example of going from a process that involved manual steps to automating the workflow steps involved? I think we heard a couple of those with, specifically, I remember hearing from you, Shannon, about going from paper to document control. Do you mind maybe answering that, maybe a little bit more information?
Sure. For us, document control was probably the easiest process for us. We used the out-of-the-box easy version, so there was very little configuration that we had to do. So when we sat down to plan this with the implementation team, we had a short period of configuration, scoping, and gap analysis. And then from there, the activity was actually performed, meaning the system was configured for us. We were able to test that. And upon the successful testing, we were able to move it into user acceptance testing, complete the final validation, because we do run a validated system with 21 CFR Part 11 requirements. And then once that was complete, we entered into a period where we had to do data migration. And what was really nice for us, and we've seen this with several different of the Reliance applications that we've implemented, the data migration process is painless. The hardest part is pulling together all of the information. But when it came to doc control, it was a simple spreadsheet, fill in a few fields, and then a link to the documents that were housed in an SFTP site. And then from there, the system automatically created the records, brought in the documents for us, and set everything up. So then it was just a matter of training and launch. And I've seen that repeated multiple times through other applications. In some cases, we chose not to bring in legacy data and have a clean cut from paper or Excel based to the new system. But in the cases where we found we need to do migration, all the tools are there. They're quite simple for us. And really, the most challenging parts have been updating our own SOPs, which of course, anytime you make a major change like this, you have a significant number of SOPs, work instructions, related documents to be updated. Training our teams. So when we took our first leap, we started with doc control because it was the most straightforward, and it got the entire organization, gave them the opportunity to kind of dip their toes in. If you weren't part of the authoring and approval process, you were still reading documentation and accessing it. So that was the first introduction for the majority of our team to the system. So that training aspect was fairly smooth for us. We had a lot of resources from ETQ to do that. And then just the change in everyday behavior, where we had to literally block our team from accessing the prior systems and repositories of information and force them to change that behavior, which had been ingrained in them for so many years. But overall, the process has been very smooth for us each time. Data migration and just the transfer process from one system into Reliance is now become almost routine for our team. Every time we go to launch a new application, we have a set checklist of things we go through that we build on and improve each time based on the feedback. And it typically goes very smoothly.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Robert, do you have any examples or anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just add that ETQ is very customizable, and so part of what we did was work with the teams to understand what we needed for each of those areas, not just from the quality system side, but also what do those teams need if they want to control a type of document, for instance. And we got everybody's information in place, and then we were able to go into ETQ and actually customize the sections if we wanted to add additional information. An example would be my metallurgy team controls what we call a MET practice. And a MET practice is broken down by process station and really kind of talks about the elements that go into the aluminum from a metallurgy standpoint, and the controls that we have in place with that process. So some of those come from outside organizational, ASME standards, things like that in that process. So traditionally, what would happen is we'd have a metallurgist that would create that MET practice, and then we'd want it to go through a very set up workflow all the way up to the chief metallurgist to approve that MET practice. So that's a new version of the MET practice going into the system. And all of the documents that were used, maybe some of the engineering concepts, some of the metallurgy configurations and equations they used to kind of get there, those were all kind of left on somebody's desktop. So what we did was we designed in the workflow to add, that approval step through that process to make sure that we went through the entire metallurgy team as they wanted. But we also added unique sections in that workflow just for that document that allowed them to put what we call pre-work documents that are needed, to develop the tables that are needed for the MET practice itself. So that's also saved in the record, but only seen by that group. So we set it up so that the visibility for that section was only seen by that group, all electronic, and that allowed us to create the MET practice, allow the MET practice to be converted to a PDF, shared with the entire team on the floor. And then if a metallurgist went in to try to do a change request in that document, they would be able to see all the pre-work documents that were needed to kind of sustain that document, because those were all stored in a separate, only visible by their team section that was part of the record that we maintained for each of those documents. So just to give you some functionality from ETQ, but it allows us to really customize that process down and control it in the workflow for the different groups, for the different types of documents that we have in the system.
That's great to hear. Thanks for sharing, Robert. So just a quick question here that I can answer. Is ETQ compatible with SAP? And yes, it is. ETQ Reliance can work with any ERP system. Let's see. Another question that we had come in is, how frequently do you recommend you should prepare for an audit? We heard a lot of audits that were taking place from both of you. So just are you continuously always preparing, or is there a set schedule? Any insights on that?
So a little bit on my side, I really cannot take that prepare activity and do it. So, you know, I know in some organizations you might have set audits that you're going to conduct throughout the year, and you kind of know when those are coming, and then you spend a little time maybe working with the teams. So really, I have so many audits coming in, quite a bit. I really cannot do that. So what I do is have more of a management process that I follow every month, where I'm constantly checking on our quality systems. You know, and that's what my team does. We work and facilitate with the different groups. I also trained admins in the system that also are constantly, you know, the different levels of responsibility. They're also checking on their own responsibilities within the system as well. So I create that. ETQ has a lot of very valuable tools for that, where we have automatic reporting that comes out. We have a big initiative here in the plant of trying to make everything as digital as possible. So it's really nice to be able to have some visibility on these things and look at them. But we also create alerts and notifications so that I know if there's an area that is not meeting requirements, I get an automatic email on it. My team does. I can escalate it to their chain of command. So everybody can now see that, have that visibility. And so it makes it so much easier when I call them up on the phone or I come down and talk to them. Hey, this isn't really what we're supposed to be doing. And, you know, the standard, we have to maintain this. And it makes it a lot easier for me to communicate that with the team on it.
That's great to hear. Thanks for sharing, Robert. It's good to hear that you have that open communication. Shannon, is there something you'd like to add about how often you prepare for an audit?
Well, to be honest, I have to echo what Robert says. At the frequency at which we have audits, we maintain ourselves in an audit-ready state all of the time. So we have, in the same manner Robert mentioned, we have methods to be able to monitor our own performance, whether that's through KPIs or internal auditing. And our management team stays on top of that, you know, bi-weekly as we review that information. So for us, it's not a matter of sitting down and preparing for an audit. We maintain that level year round.
Absolutely. I can see why. Quite a few audits. Thank you for sharing. Well, I think that's about it we have time for with questions today. Again, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us, and thank you so much, Robert and Shannon, for sharing your experiences with us. And just a reminder, you will receive an email with a link to recording after this webinar. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much. Take care.